We're here this afternoon with Dr. Jose-Marie Griffiths, who's the Dean of the School of Information and Library Science here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Welcome, Dean Griffiths.
Thank you.
Could you start by just telling us a little bit about the many roles that a dean of a school like this plays here on campus and in the broader community?
Yes, well, it's not a single role. I'm glad you recognize that. It's becoming quite a complex job. I mean, basically your role is to lead a group of talented individuals who collectively can work to achieve both programmatic ends, in other words, the education of new students, and also to engage those people in research and scholarly agendas that further the discipline, further the profession, and perhaps further the general environment within which we sit. But those roles play at multiple levels. I mean, there's work within the school, working with faculty, working with staff. There's work between schools where I interact with the other deans on campus to try and facilitate collaborative activity, or to try and remove barriers to collaborative activity. Not that there are a lot of barriers in this institution, it's pretty good actually, to facilitate their interaction. And we are seeing a movement towards more and more interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary activity, and new disciplines emerging as a result. So that takes a fair bit of time. Of course, we report upwards, so we work with the provost and the chancellor, the president of the university, as we're part of a system, a 16 campus system. And I think the newest role for deans over the last probably 20 years has been the rise of the need for institutional fundraising and the role of the deans in supporting that. So I think that at institutions where they're actively engaged in some kind of funding campaign, dean's time can be taken easily up to 50% just in terms of fundraising. And that fundraising takes multiple forms, from the alumni base, from corporations and foundations, and then from individuals. So planning the campaigns and actually implementing them become quite interesting. Now here at SILS, we're at a particular point in time where SILS has been extraordinarily successful. It's a relatively small academic unit on campus compared with the College of Arts and Sciences, which is more than half the institution, or even the School of Business, which has 200 faculty. We have 23 faculty. But SILS has done extraordinarily well, but we're at a time when we have an opportunity to look forward, to look at our past successes and to say what do our future successes mean, what are we going to do. And so we've been heavily engaged in strategic planning activities, and the strategic direction of the school will then drive our future need for new facilities. So we have a lot of new facility planning coming about, and our need for additional resources, hence the fundraising campaign. So here we're at an opportunity to really engage in all those areas at the same time as keeping things moving and keeping students coming, attracting new students, developing the curriculum, making sure it's up to date, making sure it's relevant. But I think the real opportunity for schools like ours is a tremendous opportunity for growth in the kinds of activities that our graduates go out into the world to play. No longer could we say there's any one particular set of skills that are needed. There are multiple skill sets that are needed. And students who come out of schools like ours across the country are being sought after for what we, not even really traditional roles, because traditional roles almost don't exist anymore, that things are changing so rapidly in the world. But the ability to understand how people need information, how they seek information, how they need to process information, how they apply information and knowledge is very, very important. And that's really resulting in what we might call traditional roles in libraries and in archives and museums and elsewhere, and then newly emerging roles in knowledge management and information architecture and knowledge discovery and a whole range of other topics under a variety of names. Consistent with all of them, though, I think, is a real feel for the person who needs to find the information and the information resources themselves in their multiple proliferations over time and multiple formats. So it's a time of great opportunity for fields like ours, I think.
That's fascinating and very stimulating, of course, being a member of this school. How do you see SILS sort of leading the way in the sort of months, years ahead in this regard. You mentioned new facilities. You mentioned the need for sort of new curriculum. And, I mean, how do we stay on top of all this? What's the challenge to us?
Well, the challenge to us is the fact that I think people or other disciplines and other groups, other units on campus are recognizing the importance of a SILS, the value that can be added by the faculty and the students and graduates of SILS. And as a result, the dilemma for a school like ours, being relatively small on campus, is that we could be diluted very quickly. Everybody could come and want us to provide support to them. So I think the opportunity for us and for other schools like us is to think strategically. Where can we best play based on the collection of people that we have available, the people we want to attract, the strengths and the interests of the faculty? How can that play with the rest of campus? Because I don't think we have the resources to play everywhere, at least not yet. One day we might have that many resources, but right now we don't. So for us, as we've been looking at opportunities, there's a natural opportunity that seems to emerge from here, and it would be different or the same at other places. And it's in the biomedical and health arena. As you know, I've been here almost 3 years now. And when I came, in looking at the faculty and seeing what the kinds of research faculty were engaged in themselves and what kinds of interdisciplinary collaborations they were engaged in, and their interest and the interest of some of our students, we saw a clustering of interest in the health arena, whether it was medical librarianship, health information systems, consumer health provision through public libraries, the application of various techniques, data mining, text mining, usability analysis in the health and medical fields. And so it seemed a natural, given the relationships that existed, the kinds of interdisciplinary research that are going on, that be a place. It's a natural for us to say, if we're going to be strategic, that's an obvious one because work is already going on in that area, and what we can do is do things to strengthen the ability of our faculty and our students and our graduates to do work in that area. And we're doing that now through some hiring. Another area that came up recently as another opportunity that emerged from within the curriculum actually is the growth out of the work that's being done here on digital libraries, digital content, information retrieval, etc., into digital curation. That's an extension of the notion of collection, building, and preservation, and ensuring long-term access that would come out of a school like ours, but applied to the digital arena. And what I liked, when I came, that was sort of well underway, and I know that the provost at the time was very impressed when talks started about notions of institutional repositories and scholarly communication across campus, that the provost was very impressed that as we talked to him, it was with the mindset, we don't want to rush in and digitize everything and then figure out what we're going to do with it later. We want to build in elements of digital creation from the beginning. And so that's a newly emerging specialization, if you like, or concentration area for scholarship and education that I think will serve us well in the long run. So we have, in a sense, new areas that emerge from within because the need is seen and somebody steps up and we grow that area, or they come in because of relationships with the outside, whether that be on campus or externally beyond that. The other opportunity I really see for schools like ours, I mean, we emerged and grew out of a school that had been for many, many years a library school of librarianship. In 1989, I think it was, you introduced the information science curriculum here. One of the first schools to do that. Not the first, but one of the first. And expanded the program, so 2 master's degree programs, now a new, relatively new undergraduate program in information science, an undergraduate minor in information systems, a very nice portfolio of programs. But to me what was missing is the context into which we expect to graduate our students is really much, much broader. And so as we're looking, we're not just putting out those students into libraries that exist or libraries that transform and new areas of information technology and information systems design and so on. But we really are now looking at a very, very broad-based information industry within which libraries sit, publishers sit, internet service providers sit, etc. And if we reconsider ourselves and our area of endeavor to be a school that delivers people to serve in the information industry. It has some, it does some things for us. It means that we expose all of our students to the fact there is an industry, and as we work in the industry, we have to not see ourselves as isolated components that operate independently of any of the others, so that the economics of the whole environment, the politics of the whole environment, the different kinds of service provision, the different kinds of models that evolve, it changes the way you look at what you're providing and what you're graduating people for. It also broadens the base of potential interest in what we do, and so potentially it expands our opportunity to recruit students, and it certainly expands our ability to place students, and it expands the kinds of relationships that might lead to research and scholarship or other kinds of engagement activities. And so it's sort of taking a view. It started off, I think, fairly narrowly construed as a school when it was first started, into now saying there's this huge industry that's evolved, and there's no one place that serves it, but we can serve as much of that as we have the capability to serve, and gives us tremendous leeway in terms of where we decide to specialize, with who we decide to create partnerships with, and how we decide to move forward in the future. So it just gives us a lot more space in which we can opt to move depending on the interests of faculty and students.
That's fascinating. The term information industry is one that I think a lot of us think about in different sorts of ways. As we've moved from sort of the more traditional kind of library emphasis to sort of move out to publishing, that's sort of, I think, a lot of our students understand that. Some of our students will understand the sort of maybe database administration type role because we have so many classes devoted to that. But you're really talking about something much broader that maybe isn't even defined in terms of our curriculum, but it's almost like we'd like to train our students to sort of invent their own sort of jobs.
Yep. I think so. I think in a sense people don't wake up and suddenly say, I want to work in the information industry, I want to be an information professional, and you don't do that. By the same token, it's hard sometimes for employers to see where to go for the kinds of people they're looking for. They sort of know, they'll recognize it when they see it, but they don't quite know what it is. And so for us, it's a communications issue. It's a question of reaching out with an articulation of what our people can do, hopefully to graduate confident graduates who can say why they have relevance and value in any number of different kinds of institutions or organizations, and then reaching out to spread the word and to demonstrate and to create role models that we can point to and say, here's someone, they made this very interesting, developed a career path that now might become a routine career path for that organization. But it's fascinating to me, in this world where predictions have been made for many, many years. As a classic example, the demise of cataloging and the demise of the need for cataloging. And yet, you can sit with people at Google and Microsoft who say, we need that cataloging because we use it to do what we do, to create the products we create. So things morph in different ways. The terminology is different, but there are lots of similarities, even between the very traditional and the very new, and the skill sets can be carried forward. They just need to be updated a little bit, applied perhaps in a different way. So, I find it's fascinating to me because I don't know that there's another area that has such a similar kind of opportunity at the moment.
I of course agree, and am quite excited to work in this field. It's interesting to me that we're not really a computer science or engineering type program. We're not a business kind of program. And we're not a psychology department, but we have to take all of those components from the people, the sociology, the technology, and the information, and somehow put it together. It seems like a 2-year master's program isn't enough.
It's true. We work at the boundaries of disciplines, and it's that intersection that makes it very, very interesting and makes us relatively unique. It takes a certain kind of person who's willing to work at the boundaries. It takes a certain amount of overhead to maintain the boundary relationships. But I think the rewards are tremendous. And if you think about the way the world is moving, the way organizations are sort of talking about real teams and real collaboration and cross-disciplinary activity, we're in that space all the time. And similarly, we focused on delivering information to users. I mean, to sort of real people who have real needs with problems solved by having better access to information content. And that in itself is also the way to go. I mean, we were customer service oriented long before customer service became a term that was used. And I think that defines us. I mean, it's something that's very unique. Our understanding of the user, whether the user is an individual or a small group or a large group or a community, and our understanding of the inherent nature of information and information structures and information organizations, which is unique to us. I mean, there are other people who deal with people, but we uniquely deal with information structures. And it's that combination that's very powerful. And we bring then a whole range of tools and technologies and capabilities, from play tablets to high-performance supercomputers, to affect that relationship between the people and the information content that's available to them. So it's, you can simplify it at a high level. The manifestations become more complex.
Absolutely. Earlier you mentioned the collaboration, and it seems like this seems to be the way of the world, and especially in academic institutions and in corporations, that you have to sort of work with lots of other people and departments and so on. Are there opportunities for us, other than getting caught in the overload situation, to actually study collaboration as a research problem, or to facilitate? We've been intermediaries.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like this might be something that is an opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, I think very much so. In fact, there's been faculty here who focused on collaboration, and I do think it's an area of research in and of itself. It's a very interesting area because we're really looking. I mean, you can look now to see the different kinds of metrics to measure the kinds of interactions and the richness of interactions, and look at how that evolves in groups that start to work on campus, between campuses, and across institutions. And again, what works for which kinds of people, and how do different technologies and information structures work to facilitate and stimulate collaboration is very important. But like there's an overhead to it as well, and it's also something that takes time, because we're talking about behaviors and cultures and overhead, and those are difficult to deal with. But I think over time you can see quite interesting changes. I'm intrigued. I was telling someone the other day that the term collaboratory was coined in 1989. There was a National Academy report on the information technology and the conduct of science. It was an interesting report. It was pre-web, which is what's even more interesting about it. And it talked about how information technology was changing, and there was a lot of anecdotal data. And here we are, almost 25 years later, and we still have not found really strong and consistent ways of measuring and looking at the impact of information technology on the conduct of science, or any other work for that matter. And so it would be interesting to take a look at that and really engage in those kinds of interactions. And as I see more interdisciplinary centers and sort of interdisciplinary activities on campus, I think we have an opportunity to have faculty engage and students engage in trying to understand the nature of collaboration more.
You're talking about certainly more than just return on investment, but things like the actual new discoveries.
Absolutely.
The
things that you simply couldn't do any other way. Right. I look at I said nowhere is perhaps has the kind of range of opportunity and transformative power as we have right now. There is another area, and the moment I said it, I realized there's another one, and that's the whole move now towards personalized medicine. So in the biomedical arena, this tremendous wealth of knowledge that we now have, because technology allows us to capture the genomes, our personal genetic code. It allows us to capture our family histories, and it allows us, as more and more work is done, to identify particular genes or particular genetic makeups that, given a particular diagnosis, will respond differentially to different kinds of treatments. And this notion of moving from sort of diagnosis-based medicine to personalized medicine ultimately I believe will be so transformational that in fact we will shift medicine from being a lot of after-the-fact reactive work to proactive wellness maintenance in the long term. I mean, it's hugely transformational, and it's an information technology-based environment that's allowed that to happen.
Right.
And I believe, and that's just the beginning. I mean, I don't think we've even fully understood the kinds of capabilities that will come. But in order for us to even manifest that future, we have to have a lot more research and development in tools and capabilities that allow people not only to feel comfortable with what they're getting, but to really trust in the decisions that are being made and the options that are being presented to them. So we've got quite a long way still to go in that regard. And it'll be interesting to see when the trust in systems and capabilities that are technology-based or technology-mediated will begin to override the human trust with its sort of errors built in. So it's an interesting future for all of us, I think.
It certainly is. Much to look forward to, and best wishes to you and SILS in the years ahead to attack some of these problems.
Thanks a lot.
Other things you'd like to add?
No, I just think it's a great environment. We do need to do a little bit more work, I think, with young people to get them to understand the opportunities that exist in this field. I mean, I'd like to see us do more outreach to high schools and middle schools in terms of career opportunities in this field. But I think that will come over time as more of our graduates go out and do interesting things and become parents and become teachers and so on. But that's the one area where I think we've been lacking a little bit. It's not a known area.
Right.
I mean, if potential employers don't really know who we are, how can we expect young people to think ahead and say, I want to go and work in this field?
So would you see a time when information or information science or information studies or something would be a sort of a K-12 kind of course?
Well, certainly what we call information literacy at the basic level would be a K-12 course. I dare say even a middle school kind of course. We are now looking at children coming along with very different study habits, very different entertainment habits, very different communication habits. And you see it and I see it, and it's surprising. And I do think we'll see enough of a change emerging with this generation and beyond that it'll begin to have an impact on the university and the corporate sector and elsewhere. I don't think we've even started to see it. But there are efforts now to say what is fundamentally different about the way these young people are interacting and how will that translate. And those of us who, we may observe it, we probably won't be immersed in it, but that's going to be fascinating to see how productivity is redefined, how creativity is redefined, how innovation is redefined in that context. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.